when we have a tiny little seed in front of us, there's an awful lot there in the seed that we don't see with our eyes. And how to tune into that which we don't see, that's where we might begin.
Rice has no ethnicity or age or culture. It is a universal human food.
Rice governs life. Rice is not only something that people eat, but it's the foundation of culture and civilization.
To me, the spirit of rice is healthfulness for us individually, but it really means more than that. If we're healthy individually, that means we can take care of our families. They can be healthy too, our community, and maybe even take care of this small planet that we're sharing together.
When things are going right in the body, that only can happen if we give the right kind of food for the body to use. It has to have access to all these resources, if you will. And so Mother Nature has figured out how to do that.
One grain, 10,000 grains means that the world gives back so much to all of us that we may not even be aware of. That's the whole spirit of rice.
We plant it this year. By the end of the season, we'll have 600 grains from this one, because each plant puts out 4 or 5 stalks.
Oh my gosh.
If the second year you planted out those 600 seeds, you would get about 24 pounds of rice. If the third year, if you planted those 24 pounds of rice, you'd need a lot of friends, the village. You'd need 3 to 5 acres, and the yield would be, can you guess?
No.
7 tons of rice.
Oh my gosh.
So the big thing that we were doing this weekend was bringing the seeds out of dormancy and into germination. And so we had to prepare the seeds. That's from one stalk. That should be about 120 seeds. It doesn't look like many, but that's about what the average is, 120 seeds. And now we'll take this and submerge it in the stream, in the cold stream. I think the best place, Marley, is going to be right up there. There's a little pool up there below the culvert. Okay, so here we are. We're going to submerge this protective cage with the rice in it into this cold stream. But at this temperature, it's not going to germinate. It's going to slowly break, it's going to slowly swell and break dormancy. But it won't germinate. After that, we brought the seeds that had been in the cold water, we brought them inside. And that's where they then visibly broke dormancy, where the little sprouts started showing.
So how crazy is it that all you need is a tiny seed, some water, some sunlight, and some good quality soil?
When you think about the quality of the food coming from good quality soil with adequate sunshine, with adequate water, I mean, that combination, obviously they're all important. Every single one of those are important.
It's important to start with a good seed so that you have a healthy plant. If the seed is, if the plant itself is affected, it's not going to produce a good quality seed for the next generation of plant. So just like humans would nurture their babies so that they can go on to make healthy humans, we need healthy plants to go on to make healthier plants in future generations.
The grain, in other words, our staple human food, is the product of nature, the crystallization of nature. The second is fresh, clean water. This, as we all know, is an essential element of life.
Water is critical to life. We need it for drinking, but we also need it for plants. And if the water has contamination, those contaminants can end up in the plant and actually cause negative human health outcomes as well as negative outcomes for the plant.
And then the next is sunlight, how grains are the crystallization of light from the sun. Green plants perform photosynthesis, which crystallizes, stores that solar energy in the form of their seeds. So their seeds, which are actually grains, the grains are the seeds of the plant, are concentrated light energy.
Sunlight is the most natural energy source. Plants have this unique ability to take that sunlight and turn it into energy. They're the only organisms other than photosynthetic microorganisms that can do that, and we rely on them to make food. Without plants, we wouldn't be able to take that sunlight's energy and have food. Healthy soil means healthy humans. So soil that's rich in nutrients, has an active microbial community, is going to produce healthier plants. So the better that we can treat our soils, the better plant will grow, the better outcomes we'll have for human health.
And that soil is duplicated within our individual physiology in our microbiome. So we have an outer biome, which we call the soil, and if that's healthy, generating strong plants, strong grains, strong beans, etc., then that is translated internally in terms of our microbiome, which we need as part of our natural immunity and adaptability to nature.
If you take 1 ounce of fertile living soil, there are more microorganisms in that 1 ounce than there are men, women, and children on this planet. They form a complex community of interdependence, as well as between the rhizomes and the fungi and the roots of plants. There's a lot of communication going on that we're just now beginning to learn of. And it's really fundamental to health. What we don't appreciate is when we apply chemicals to the soil, we're basically burning them. It's dead. We have taken a living community and turned it into inert dirt. There's no nourishment that can be drawn from dirt. You'll get trace minerals, but that's not what imparts health and natural immunity to plants or to the people and animals that consume those plants.
You know, good soil without pesticides, without herbicides, and you know, all the chemicals that we're adding, even without fertilizer. Why don't we just let the soil organically develop itself?
Working with the soil regeneratively solves all the problems: climate change, mental and physical disease, species extinction, everything that's going on right now. All these is linked to our farming practices, which are so destructive. So we can turn it around. The understanding, I think, is there.
Look how tiny it is.
So this is a unfinished cold frame. We'll finish it up soon. But this is where we're going to be putting the rice. This is a simple framed box with a plastic liner in it, in which we can put water. Underneath the plastic there's a layer of felt that is used beneath rubber for pond liners to protect the plastic from getting punctured. But then we put some water in there, and then we put this rack in. So we're putting the rack in here to support the seed flats, so that the seed flats won't puncture the plastic. Those little white nubs, or coleoptiles that we saw in the other seeds, they're now emerging as the first shoots from the seed. There's 2 seeds were put in each of these cells. You see these here are more advanced than these. Have shot up, and this is the first leaf emergence. Here are just the plain shoots without any differentiation yet. You see the roots there. These have been growing in these little cells for 4 to 5 weeks. And now we're bringing them out to go into the paddy. When these seedlings grow into a community in the paddy, they're all communicating with each other. They're going to communicate their essence to the whole paddy when all is said and done. They communicate through us as human beings, through their roots, and through the common atmosphere that they're taking in. Now this is the original rice which I started growing back in the 1980s, so-called Dvorskian rice from Ukraine.
I think so.
It's now called Dvorskian South River rice. It's because it's been growing here for close to 40 years.
Let's recognize this concept of nutrients working together. And recognize too, there's some kind of master plan that we live with. We can call it Mother Nature. You know, it's evolved over eons of time. You know, if that works that way, if that's what nature did, and we can see that, it's very clear, why don't we consider the possibility maybe human beings should work together too, so that the whole would be greater than the sum of its parts? Why don't we think about different societies with different customs and views and so forth and so on? Why don't we think about all of them working together?
Oh, okay.
You see the water starting to come in, Sherry?
Yes.
The tanks I'm using to store water. Pump the water from the river to here.
And then to the
Yeah.
So rice originates from an aquatic wild species that is native to deep water and perennially wet areas, and it has some very unique characteristics as a result. It's the only major crop plant that evolves as an aquatic. Wild rice was native to North America, and today we associate wild rice primarily with the Great Lakes region. But for many, many centuries, many millennia, wild rice grew throughout the continent and served as a main grain for native people. Around 1600, following the early English colonialization of North America, the first rice from the Far East came to the United States. It actually came via Madagascar from ships on the east coast of Africa. 10 to 12 million enslaved African from West Africa
and to some extent Central Africa were brought forcibly over to the New World, beginning in the early 17th century and through the 18th and early 19th centuries. During the civil rights era, Martin Luther King inherited the eloquence, patience, and peacefulness of his ancestors. They were likely rice farmers in West Africa who had been abducted to work on a plantation in Georgia. Girls and women from that region braided rice seeds in their hair to help survive the Middle Passage. The rice they grew came to be called American after their new homeland. It's a beautiful long-on variety that has been rediscovered and cultivated today by farmers in the South and the Caribbean.
And from that rice coast, the knowledge of how to grow rice was basically the enslaved people basically put in place the rice paddies in the swamps close to the ocean based on the knowledge they had from West Africa. So the first rice culture based on the knowledge of the enslaved people, and made rice to one of the biggest economic drivers in the U.S. in that time.
So rice has its origins as an offshoot, if you will, of those wild, wet, loving ancestors. And it has multiple domestications in different parts of the world. The earliest domestication is probably in China. There are other domestications that took longer and are less dramatic in the Ganges River basin between sort of the Bangladeshi, Indian, Myanmar, that area. And then there's a domestication in Africa that's independent of a different wild ancestor.
But thousands and thousands of rice varieties have developed over the years. It's because they grow in a particular microenvironment where day length, insulation from the sun, water drainage, the resident flora and fauna are different. And so differentiation really comes from mutation, survival, sort of more, gradual processes, and these have evolved over quite some number of years, and usually under their own conditions, they'll express themselves in an optimal way. Take to another environment, and you won't necessarily see the same results because it's got a different environment to read and respond to.
At first, the emerging flower stalks, called panicles, are not very noticeable within the vigorous growth of leaves. The very first organ of the flowering panicle to appear, as it emerges from the stem, is the awn. With the older heirloom varieties of rice, each flower has an awn. The awn is actually an antenna with an important function for informing the seed. It channels divine formative forces from the heavens and through the surrounding atmosphere of the earth for the formation of the new seed and the future plant. The entire panicle includes about 150 flowers, each containing organs of reproduction and seed formation. For about 2 weeks, the panicles continue to emerge, extending straight up like an arrow, with the awns leading the way as they receive formative forces from the moon, the sun, and other stars, from heaven and earth, initiating the fertilization process.
Hi, Christian.
Hey, how are you?
Welcome back.
Good to see you.
So,
Welcome back.
I'm so excited. Show me what the rice looks like. We've been away for 2.5 months.
2.5 months since May 22nd, I think it was, when we transplanted the rice.
Oh.
As the weight
of the grain milk becomes heavier, the flowering stalks start to bow down towards Mother Earth. The liquid grain milk becomes more dense and substantial. When the rice is ready to harvest, there's a feeling that the paddy has taken on a golden aura. At this time, the water is drained from the paddy to enable the harvesting process. If you remember when we planted these plants 2.5 months ago,
Yes, and look how
they're only so high
Oh my God.
and just single stems. This one was probably 2 seedlings in a bunch. But each of these tillers puts up the stalk, the flowering stalk, which is called a panicle. And each flowering stalk has, on average, about 125, 130 grains of rice. These are the awns which extend from each flower. And what are they extending to when they first come up? They're going very vertical, like in this here.
These particular grains are very unique because they have the antenna-like hairs which project out from each grain. These antenna-like hairs are actually just that, they're antenna. And rather than channeling the sun's energy during the day, at night they point towards the night sky and they charge the cosmos through each of these antennae. All of that star energy is coming in through these awns and being captured by the grains.
The world as a whole actually is a living being. And so the rocks and the rivers and the mountains and everything has consciousness. And so that is part of our future journey, to regain that kind of wonder and awe and respect and come into harmony. Because nature actually will lead us, guide us toward peace and harmony if we will only listen.
What Christian is doing here is paving the way for the next step for the entire whole foods, natural foods, organic movement.
Sherry, what are we doing today?
We're taking the netting off the rice, which kept the birds from eating it, because we're ready to harvest the rice. And it looks beautiful. It's like reflecting the early morning sun. There's lots of dew on it.
The Japanese harvesting sickle. You can see that it has a serrated blade. And as Rubino will demonstrate, with a quick slice, you can easily take the whole plant in
kind
one
of at
swipe.
an angle too.
Yeah, yeah. And so Rubino will demonstrate that, and there are 2 other harvesting tools here, so a few people can harvest at once. But the main work actually is going to be tying the bundles. Those bundles have to be tied, and then 2 bundles tied together. And then they get slung over the drying racks in the greenhouse.
So that's it, kind of just an angle and a pull.
Okay.
So this ends up to be a bunch. And just get my hand around it. And these bunches will be laid out here on these cloths. And yeah, then the tying. So thank you. For the tying, this is the important part to get, and it'll take some little bit of practice to get it. So this is a bundle of dried rice. And this is the threshing machine. There's a wheel here that goes around with teeth on it. And that spinning around is going to take the grain off of this bundle of stalks. It was probably made in the 1950s or 1960s. You can see the way it's made. It's very simply made. It's not especially sturdy. Some of the hardware on it is handcrafted. You see these washers here are soldered to the nuts for handle. It's quite simply put together. But it's amazing to think that for over 1,000 years people were threshing the rice by much simpler means. They would thrash them with sticks, or they would walk on them, or have their livestock walk around on them. It's only until maybe 200 years ago. What's 200 years ago? 1820? Actually, it's less than 200 years ago, probably, that a machine like this came into being. So it's a treadle thresher. Over here. You see, of course, the awns are still on there. So this is the threshing on a very simple scale. People really enjoy this part of the whole process because it's fun to get into the rhythm of the threshing machine.
A
controversy arose a few years ago about the possibility of there being arsenic in some brands of rice. What's that about?
Arsenic is a problem in that rice tends to take up arsenic, and sometimes it's, if the soil is laden with arsenic, the rice plant will take up the arsenic from the soil. In places like Bangladesh, it's not actually soil, it's because of pumping the water from deep down in the layer into a new layer.
And it turns out that rice grown in certain parts of the United States in particular did have some traces of arsenic in them. And it seems to have come from arsenical compounds used in poultry production, unfortunately, and perhaps also from pesticides, got into the soil and they grew the rice there. But there are other places where that has not been an issue at all, and I'm happy to tell you that researchers at Harvard actually looked to see if there was any adverse effect from consuming rice in general, and a very careful analysis showed that no, it's a good, clean food.
In that study, we tested the rice from South River Farm, and again, we found among the lowest levels of arsenic that's been reported in the United States.
But arsenic is a natural part of of Earth's crust, and whenever there's arsenic in the soil, many plants will take it up.
Even so, I think it's good to be choosy. And you want brown rice, you want organic rice, you want rice that was carefully made.
Now that the rice is winnowed, now we're going to hull it to prepare it for rinsing and cleaning and eating. So we're going to turn on the hulling machine.
Hey Sherry, welcome to Blue Moon Acres.
Thank you. You want to show us the field and the work you've been doing so far?
Absolutely.
And we're so excited to hear about and get more information about what it's like growing rice in New Jersey.
Glad to be helpful in that way.
Great.
Sure. There's the grain. So it's heading up right now. And it's going through the booting stage. So you have a vegetative stage, and then you have the reproductive stage. And just like a woman who's pregnant, when it hits that reproductive stage, it needs nutrition. So, hopefully you've got your conditions in your soil such that it's feeding that plant well and taking care of it. The benefits of growing organic, and I will add to that regeneratively, is that you cultivate a microbiome around the rhizosphere, the roots of the plant, which helps solubilize the nutrition and make it available to the plant. Without those microbes, your plants can be missing nutrients. They might be there in the soil, but they will be there in the soil in a form that the plant is not able to use them.
At the Barnard Medical Center, patients come in, they want to lose weight. They want to tackle their diabetes, get their cholesterol down. We always recommend that brown rice be part of what they're eating. Rice is a nutritious food, really for any age. In our modern society, when patients come to see us and we suggest foods that they're going to do much better with, like brown rice, and vegetables, and beans, and healthy foods, for some, these are new things. Brown rice is really a nutrition powerhouse. The reason it's brown, of course, is that the fiber, which is the little cap on the outside of the grain, is still there, unlike white rice where it got polished away. In the milling process to make white rice, they throw all that away, which is unfortunate. Fiber is good for you. The fiber on the brown rice will keep your digestion working well. It helps your body to eliminate things that you don't want. Fiber helps you get rid of all kinds of toxins. And fiber isn't just something that sweeps bad stuff away. The fiber that's in the brown rice brings you things. It brings you minerals, zinc and other minerals. They're really in the bran part of it, which is the brown rice. And they also have traces of natural oils that your body needs too.
It prevents cancer, heart disease, diabetes, chronic kidney disease, on and on and on. And preventing it is just one aspect of it. There's another aspect that is not generally appreciated. That is people who already have this disease, been diagnosed with one of those diseases. For a lot of these now we're discovering that if you switch the diet, it reverses it. So now it's just not about prevention, it's about treatment as well.
One of the real concerns that I have as a doctor is that as the world is more and more westernizing and letting wonderful natural products like rice be replaced by pork chops, bacon, cheese, that kind of stuff, our health is degenerating. But luckily, we are getting toward the end of that tunnel. And many people are now saying, wait, I lost too much. I need to go back to these wonderful foods that kept us slim and healthy and gave us long lives.
And what is dragging us, keep holding us back, is our taste preferences. And if we switch to this kind of diet and keep at it for a month, maybe 2 or so, our taste preferences change. And we look back and we just wonder, what in the world did we ever eat that stuff for before? So that's one question.
Understanding what good, healthy foods, including rice, really are, that's fundamental to it. Partly because it gives them the fiber and nutrients they need, and partly because it doesn't have any of what they don't need. It doesn't have any of the cholesterol and bad fat and so forth. And the results are spectacular.
Many people now are suffering with immune problems, and they're relying on medications and drugs to help with those immune problems, but then experiencing the side effects. With whole foods, specifically whole grains and brown rice, they give us all the nutrients and all the vitamins, and they're actually, brown rice is the most matched to our diet in terms of carbohydrates, water, fat, protein.
All these mechanisms tend to work together, and they're not just 10. If I had looked on, I'm sure that we could have found hundreds. They're all coming together. They depend on each other. If you change the level of one, it's going to affect the activity of another, and so forth and so on. Multiply that by 1,000,000. We don't have any way in science or medicine or anything else to ever duplicate that. That's the concept of whole. It's the whole holistic effect. So the body reacts in the same fashion, remarkably well, when we give it the right food. It's absolutely, it's just astounding. Sometimes we get caught up in details and lose sight of the whole. Even though the details may be important, even though it's something we should pay attention to. Too often we get focused on the details and we miss the big picture. And that, quite frankly, is the source of why there's so much confusion in the world about nutrition.
Nature is infinitely abundant and productive. And early humanity, like other living beings, whether plants or animals, lived in harmony with nature and were able to just naturally harvest foods that grew wild. The kind of imbalances that we've created through our culture and civilization are leading us toward destruction. It's very clear that unless we change, unless we harmonize with nature, we will self-destruct.
It just takes 3.5% of committed individuals to make significant changes socially, environmentally, politically. We can, right now, make dramatic change. And frankly, we don't have the luxury of time.
There's one consequence that's going to be huge, and that's the impact it's going to have on our environment. 90% of the human race is going to disappear at the end of this century. This is our grandchildren. That's how fast it's moving. And if we don't get that, as I say, all this other stuff we've talked about is foolishness. So the real question is, let's resolve that problem, and the best way to do it, eat the right food, period.
We're at this tipping point right now. Either we take this really seriously and we pay attention and we go back to trusting nature and creating gardens and growing our own food and saying no to pesticides and no to poor quality soil and water, we're going to get extinct. Gardening or growing grains, especially brown rice, which is such a balanced whole plant food, is really the answer to all our current problems with the environment.
Sustainability, what is sustainability? It's really about regeneration in all of its life forms. We want more than just a sustainable planet where we're able to sustain from one generation to the next, but really how to create a culture where we can thrive. That's just not people, but flora and fauna as well.
The life of rice continues, now in a dormant stage, until the next growing season. The seed is the most powerful manifestation of the spirit of rice. Seemingly insignificant in appearance, the seed carries the future of the plant, and quite possibly the future of humanity. I think now, at this time, when we're humanity and the whole planetary system is in dire straits, there's an opening and there's an invitation to enter into that connection and a greater dialogue and connection with the plants, whatever plants.
This is really Christian's wavelength, and really much of the time I'm just looking at the microbiology, the biophysics, all of that, the more scientific. But I will say this, there have been numerous coincidences that have happened in the growing of rice in our operation that have also made me feel that there is this other dimension to things that are going on here. And again, the coincidence of finding that article on Christian on the newsstand, oftentimes I'm thinking that it's not so much me that has decided to grow rice, but it's the rice has decided that I'm growing rice.
Well, growing rice in a bucket or in the garden or growing other types of foods or whatever it might be, creates a relationship with nature. So however small it might be, you begin to observe the changes in the plant. You begin to feel its energy. You may begin to talk to it, or you may begin to listen to it. And anyway, it's like the start of this big journey of coming back into harmony with heaven and earth.
The spirit of rice essentially is the spirit of humanity, the spirit of our endless journey from nature, from the universe to this earth, the enjoyment of life on this earth, enjoying a healthy, happy life with many, many friends. And then the spirit of rice also means our future life in the world of spirit, the world of vibration, the world of energy. And that energy which is captured and stored in brown rice and other grains is the energy that elevates our consciousness, elevates our spirit towards our eternal life. So that's what the spirit of rice means to me.
I didn't understand until I was already about, in my 20s. And I started to understand, you don't just take a seed and plant it anywhere. You have to actually know a lot about how to manage that soil, how to manage all of the components that you need.
Well, the spirit of rice is it's kind of a metaphorical question for me. Because I've gotten so involved in the agronomy of this, to me it's to understand and take advantage of the potential that exists in the rice plant. All varieties, from sea level up to 2,800 meters above sea level in Nepal.
The spirit of rice means to me the spirit of healthy life for all people on the planet. Fresh, healthy food, clean air, clean water for all people.
And the spirit that comes with that is, for me, the spirit, the willingness to learn, and then understanding that comes with the idea that it can continue to give. It doesn't start or end with you. It comes from somewhere. It creates itself. You can help propagate it and share it. And that spirit is the spirit that I, as a teacher, I come with.
Food is energy, just like animals and other humans. And when you set your intention into a plant, it gives back threefold. They say 1 grain, 10,000 grains, meaning, not only does it produce multitudes more of food for you, but it also supports your dreams and your goals in life and your spiritual development.
So that's the direction that I am exploring and want to continue exploring and want to communicate to others, to celebrate and to pursue in our connection with not only the rice, but all of our plants.
1 grain equals 10,000 grains. The earth is so full of abundance. We cannot outgive the earth. The earth gives us what we need and so much more. And that's what the spirit of rice means to me.
We learned a lot over this past year. The world gave us friends and family that we will have forever. And as we gain new friends, we lose some too. But they will always be here living through us. This documentary and the spirit of rice.